Hello everyone. Tonight, we begin with a question about something both quiet and profound. How did girls in 14th century England find themselves chosen for marriage often before they could spell their own names? Join us to explore this dramatic and surprising story now. Picture yourself standing in the middle of a small English village in the year 1328. The roofs are thatched. The air carries the scent of damp wood and sheep dung, and your fingers are sore from spinning wool since dawn. You stretch your back beside the communal bake oven, wiping flour from your cheeks, when an older woman taps your arm and whispers that your father's been speaking with Master Giles, the Reeves' cousin, about a possible match. You're 14. You're not surprised. You might not make it through this voyage awake. Before you snuggle into your blanket, hit like on the video and comment where you're watching from and what time it is there. It's so fun to know who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You walk along a packed dirt path that winds through hedgerows and grazing fields, your feet dragging a little from the weight of your thoughts. Around you, life is slow but predictable. There's no such thing as dating. No stolen kisses behind barns or flirtations at candlelit inns. Not here. Here, your future is a negotiation, and you are the contract. The market for marriage doesn't look like a marketplace. But listen, it's in the murmured conversations between your father and the cooper down the lane. It's in the way women appraise each other's daughters at Sunday Mass, pretending to be interested in their knitting. It's in your mother's quiet combing of your hair, her fingers tugging a little harder than needed as she calculates the worth of a cow and your future side by side. Imagine holding your spindle. How heavy does it feel when it might be all that proves your value? In this world, marriage isn't simply a hope. It's an expectation, layered with pressure, protection, and property. Your value is not set by romance, or even entirely by beauty, but by your father's land, your mother's linens, and the possibility that you'll bear sturdy sons. If you're lucky, the choice feels mutual. If you're not well, you learn to adapt. You pass the village green where children are laughing as they chase a dog. None of them yet know that soon they'll be measured by the weight of their dowries or the width of their family's holdings. In fact, neither do you not really. You've heard tales, of course, but it's always stories about someone else's fate. Until now, the man your father's speaking with has a son. He's not bad to look at, though his ears stick out a little. You've seen him once at the fair, haggling over a bushel of apples with the vigor of a knight storming a castle. You weren't impressed, and yet, here you are being appraised for alignment. Your age, his age. Your family's field, his family's oxen. Your quiet nature, his temper. Whether he's willing to let your younger brother keep the corner of land by the stream when your father dies. It's not about you. Not really. You are one of many gears in a system that has been slowly turning for centuries. Historians still argue whether young women had any meaningful say at all in their betrothals. Some claim that peasant girls could refuse if they truly disliked a match. Others suggest refusal was mostly theoretical, technically possible, socially catastrophic. But beyond theories and arguments, you can feel it in your ribs. You have little power except how well you play the game, how pleasant you are, how useful, how uncomplaining. You walk into the small church on the hill and see the priest dusting off the pews. He glances your way and gives a nod. He's the one who will eventually call the band's 3 public announcements over 3 weeks to see if anyone objects to your match. But that's a long way off, right? Or maybe not. It's early spring, and the fields are waking. People are thinking ahead to autumn harvests and winter marriages. Weddings often take place during the less busy seasons when there's time for dancing, celebrating, and bedding. You wonder if you'll dance. You imagine wearing the one good kirtle your mother keeps wrapped in a chest beneath dried lavender. You imagine your feet bare or perhaps borrowed shoes, stepping awkwardly on straw-covered floorboards. You imagine trying not to look afraid. At night, you lie in your small bed, stuffed with straw and goat hair, and listen to your sister breathing beside you. She's younger still, in the safe zone where no one whispers about her future yet. You envy her. You wonder if she'll be luckier than you. You hold a thin piece of cloth to your chest embroidered with clumsy flowers and imagine giving it to someone you chose. But you tuck it away. Such fantasies are fine for tales told by the fire, but not for village girls like you. Yet sometimes change begins in a quiet moment. Perhaps it's the way the wind moves through the trees one evening, or how your mother sighs while mending your hem, or how you see that same boy again, not haggling this time, but watching a stray cat with a soft smile. And you think maybe it wouldn't be so bad. Then again, maybe it would. One old widow in the village likes to say that girls are bartered like pigs. Only pigs can squeal louder and get away with it. You laughed when you first heard it, but now it sits a little heavier in your chest. You pick herbs with your mother at the edge of the forest and overhear her say, "It's a good match, she'll have bread." And the woman next to her nods. Bread is no small thing. And just like that, you're part of the market. You never signed up. But it doesn't matter. You're already standing at the stall, waiting to be weighed. The sun barely lifts above the horizon, but already your father has gone to speak again with Master Giles. You know, because your mother, always calm, is stirring the porridge harder than usual. She doesn't meet your eyes when you offer to help, just points you toward the well and says the pot's not full. So you go. As you walk down the path, the weight of water buckets seems lighter than the thoughts crowding your mind. This is the part no one writes in songs or ballads, the quiet transactions, the hidden mathematics behind every marriage. And today, it begins in earnest. Your value is being calculated not in gold, but in grain, in land, in linens. You, like nearly every girl in England, come with a dowry. A dowry. The word sits sharp on your tongue. It's meant to be your contribution to the new household. But really, it's the fee your family must pay to hand you over. It could be a few shillings a piglet, 2 bolts of cloth, a chest of dishes if you're lucky. Or unlucky, depending on how you see it. Your father owns a small strip of land, enough for potatoes and a cow, but not much else. So your dowry will be modest. That means fewer suitors, but also fewer expectations. Sometimes obscurity is its own kind of armor. Still, you overhear them talk. If she marries into a family with more land, perhaps we'll get grazing rights come spring. Or her aunt's betrothed girl fetched a cart and mule, surely she's worth as much. You want to scream that you are not a sack of wheat to be priced by the season. But instead, you practice your curtsy. You've seen how far a polite bow can stretch in this world. Across the green, you spot Marga. Her father is a tanner. Her hands always smell faintly of lye. But her dowry, 2 goats and a corner parcel by the creek, that's a fortune in your corner of the world. You hear she already has 3 offers, one from a carpenter, one from a traveling scribe, and another from a man you hope she doesn't choose, a much older butcher with no children of his own and very few teeth. She sees you and waves. You wave back, and your heart stirs with an odd mix of envy and pity. Imagine standing beside Marga. Both of you appraised like loaves at market. One, a golden crust with honey. The other may be nutty and firm, but overlooked. Which one gets chosen first? There's a rule in the air, unspoken but strong. You are worth what you bring. Not what you think. Not what you dream. Certainly not whom you love. Historians still argue whether dowries in medieval England were more symbolic than substantial for lower-class families. Some say they were mere gestures, like handing over a spoon to show good faith. Others believe that even in the smallest villages, the negotiation of a girl's price was serious business. You don't need books to know what's true. You've seen it in your father's anxious walk, the furrow in your mother's brow, the hush in the house when the topic of your age comes up. Your 13th birthday was cake. Your 14th was quiet. Your brother doesn't worry like this. He's expected to work to inherit, to marry eventually, but not to sell himself forward. The pressure rolls off his back like a duck in the rain, but you are walking a line. Too plain, and you may be left. Too bold, and no one will ask. Too poor, and they'll turn away. Too rich, and they'll marry your fortune, not your name. Your mother calls you inside and shows you a set of sheets. You've never seen them before. "These were mine," she says, smoothing the embroidery. "They'll be yours now." There's no smile in her voice, just resignation, and maybe a trace of hope. You try to memorize the feel of the fabric, the softness faded from years. You try to imagine folding it into your future home. You try not to cry. There's something almost comical in how serious it all is. A few chickens, a cooking pot, and a feather-stuffed cushion can shift the winds of your entire life. You could marry a kind man or a cruel one, live near your family or be sent far away, all because of what your father has or doesn't. And still you play your part. You walk straighter. You speak gently. You help the neighbor with her spinning so they'll mention your name kindly. It's a little like being a sheep, you think. Groomed, fed, fattened, and always under the eyes of those deciding your future. You wonder if sheep get nervous before market day. At supper, your father says nothing, but your mother reaches over and touches your hair lightly. That night, as you lie on your straw mattress, you pretend you are in a great manor. You close your eyes and imagine silk instead of wool. You imagine lighting a candle yourself instead of waiting for permission. You imagine choosing your husband not by his acreage, but by the way he makes you laugh. But then the wind whistles through the thatch, and the cold reminds you dreams don't warm the hands. Outside, the moon is high. Somewhere, an owl calls. You sit up and peer into the dark, and you think of every other girl in every other village doing the same. Are they afraid? Are they also wondering if their price is enough or too much? The dowry is not just a payment, it's a promise, a wager, a declaration of worth in a world that rarely lets girls speak their own names. You rest your hand on the old embroidered cloth. One day soon, it will be packed away. Not for your comfort, but for your cost. Morning dew clings to the grass as you follow your mother up the path toward the church. It's Sunday, and everyone's dressed in their best, if best, can describe clothes faded by sun and patched with care. You wear your cleanest smock and a borrowed sash. The village bell clangs above, calling not just the faithful, but the watchful. Church isn't only for prayer here, it's also the stage where matches are quietly advanced, observed, and sometimes sealed with a glance. As you cross the threshold of the stone nave, you spot him again. Giles's son. He's not looking your way yet. He will, and there just beside the altar, robes rustling and brow furrowed, stands the parish priest. His name is Father Armand, and his voice carries like thunder, even when his eyes carry sleep. He's been here since before you were born, and rumor has it he once trained at a great abbey before a misunderstanding sent him to your muddy corner of England. You don't ask questions. You just curtsy when he passes. Father Armand knows more about your future than you do. Because here in the 1300s, the church holds authority over every marriage, sacred and secular. Before two people may wed, the priest must approve the match spiritually and socially. And though he swears allegiance to God, he also whispers with village elders and hears confessions from everyone's mothers. He's the glue that holds the invisible web of connections together. Imagine sitting in the pew as he begins to speak, not about heaven or sin, but about St. Agnes and the virtues of a pious wife. You glance sideways. Did he just look at you? The truth is, he might have. Marriage in medieval England isn't a matter of love. It's a matter of sacrament. To be valid in the eyes of the church, a union must be freely consented to by both parties. But what freely means can shift like mist. If your father nudges you into agreement and your mother says it's the right thing, do your lips still move by choice? Historians still argue whether village girls truly understood they could refuse a match before the banns were read aloud. Some claim consent was central. Others believe it was a ritual word uttered, not chosen. After Mass, the villagers pour out onto the green like bees from a hive. There's talk of crop rot, a dispute over pigs, and a new lad from the next village come to apprentice with the blacksmith. You feel the priest's eyes linger a moment too long before he turns away. You join the queue for bread, blessed be by the clergy. Behind you, two women whisper. Her mother's already spoken to the priest. But Giles's boy is a fidgeter. Can't stand still 5 heartbeats in a row. It's the dowry that matters, not his legs. You smile faintly and pretend you don't hear. Later that week, your mother sends you to deliver eggs to the rectory. You knock gently. The priest opens the door in his frayed cassock and takes the basket. Then he peers down at you, as if measuring not your soul, but your potential. You'll be a good wife, I think, he says. Obedient. You nod. What else is there to do? You walk home slower than usual, fingers brushing the tops of hedgerow leaves. The air smells of damp wool and wood smoke. You wonder if obedience is really a virtue, or just the word grown-ups use to decorate control. It's not that Father Armand is cruel. He's not. He blesses the ill, feeds the hungry, even gave your cousin a pair of shoes once. But when it comes to marriage, he holds the final whisper. Before any wedding can happen, he will announce the banns of marriage 3 Sundays in a row, aloud before the whole congregation. If no one objects, the match is considered publicly approved. If someone does well, objections can come with consequences. You've heard of girls who ran off before the banns could be completed. Lovers who eloped and claimed a secret vow. It's rare and dangerous. If the church doesn't recognize the union, your children may be labeled illegitimate. Your property rights vanish. Your place in the village gone. So even when your lips say yes, it's not always your voice. The church's grip isn't just symbolic. It's procedural, legal, spiritual. A holy man in a stone house with a crooked roof can decide whether you become a wife or remain a burden. And perhaps that's why he walks the village each day, not to bless, but to observe. He sees the way Giles's boy watches you near the well. He notes how often your father and Master Giles exchange nods. He marks your age, your standing, your manners. In this world, the priest is more than a man of God. He's a gatekeeper to the next chapter of your life. You wonder if he ever married, if he ever fell in love, or if he merely memorized the rules and now applies them like penance. At supper that night, your mother says your name softly. Father Armand thinks it's a good match, she adds. Your father grunts, which you've learned to interpret as agreement. The decision is nearly made, and yet deep inside, you feel something strange. Not dread exactly, not joy either. It's the odd sensation of a book closing before you've even read the ending. Imagine that. A whole life settled in hushed talks and holy nods. Outside, the village quiets. A donkey brays in the distance. You sit by the hearth, the orange glow brushing your face, and you think of tomorrow's Mass. What will Father Armand say this time? Will he mention St. Margaret, who tamed dragons with her virtue? Or will he recite a psalm about women being obedient to their husbands? Maybe both. You place your hands in your lap, trying to still them. They won't stop trembling. You wake before the bell tolls your breath, making faint clouds in the chilled morning air. The hearth's embers have long since gone out. As you dress by candlelight, your fingers brush the edge of the woolen gown your mother laid out the night before. It's your best dress. A dusty rose-brown woven 2 winters ago. The hem's been let out twice. But it's the sleeves, tightly laced, decorated with humble embroidery, that catch your eye today. Because in this world, even your sleeves speak volumes. Today is market day. And that means you're not just a daughter, you're a prospect. The village green fills with people arriving from neighboring hamlets. Carts creak over frozen mud. Chickens squawk, dogs bark, children chase hoops. And over all of it, women walk with baskets balanced on hips and eyes flicking not just to goods, but to girls. You're among them. You pass the cobbler's daughter in a bright yellow hood, a risky color. Sumptuary laws, those strange rules dictating who could wear what, strictly limit colors, fabrics, even fur trims, depending on your social status. Only the wealthy can legally wear sable velvet or rich crimson. The rest of you stick to undyed wool, homespun linen, and muted browns and greens. You wonder if the cobbler's girl is trying to appear more desirable, or if she simply doesn't care. Historians still argue how strictly these fashion laws were enforced in rural areas. Some claim officials turned blind eyes unless someone flaunted wealth. Others believe that even in the smallest villages, a girl's sleeve width or ribbon choice could invite a fine or a reputation. Imagine standing in front of a stall, fingering a strip of blue wool. It's soft, vibrant, clearly imported. You ask the merchant the price, and he laughs, not unkindly. Not for the likes of you, dear heart. You nod, not offended, just reminded. Fashion here is armor and restriction. The tighter your sleeves, the more modest your figure. The plainer your wimple, the more respectable your name. Your appearance must walk a narrow bridge, neither too poor to offend, nor too rich to invite ridicule. Just enough to catch a glance, not enough to raise a brow. And that's why today, your mother braided your hair in the same style worn by her own mother. Modest, efficient, with a single blue thread wrapped near the crown. Tradition, she murmured. It shows steadiness. You don't feel steady. You feel on display. It's not that anyone announces it outright. No town crier stands up and shouts, "Come judge the marriageable girls," but you see the signs. Men whispering to mothers. Women nudging sons toward a certain stall when a certain girl is helping with the weighing. Glances held just too long. You step carefully around a puddle, lifting your skirt to keep the hem dry. And from across the crowd, you catch Giles's boy watching you. He's chewing something probably nuts, and his face is unreadable. He doesn't smile, but he doesn't look away either. Your heart beats faster. Behind you, a tanner's wife makes a comment just loud enough. Such a neat hem. Someone's trying today. You don't turn around. You don't need to. Your ears are hot enough. There's humor here too, if you squint sideways. One girl wears a gown, clearly too large, cinched awkwardly at the waist. She trips, regains her footing, and flashes a grin as if daring the world to judge her anyway. Another girl clutches a basket so tightly her knuckles shine like polished bone. You want to take her hand, whisper, breathe. It's just another day. But you don't, because you're not sure you believe it yourself. You pass a man selling ribbons, mostly dull browns and pale yellows, but a few daring stripes of green. You imagine how one might look in your hair. But you walk on. The priest is here too. Of course he is. Roaming slowly through the crowd, offering blessings, accepting apples. His presence is quiet, but sharp, like the edge of a quill. He sees you again. This time he nods once. You nod back. A boy tries to impress a girl by lifting a basket of turnips one-handed. She giggles. His arm trembles. You smile briefly. Even here, there's space for small acts of bravery. But courtship, in this century, is rarely dramatic. There are no serenades, no moonlit escapes. Instead, a favorable marriage might begin with a shared chore. A walk home from church. A comment on the weather. Oh, watchum. Good shoes for muddy roads, someone says beside you. It's him. You look up. Giles's son. His eyes aren't unfriendly. You nod. They were my uncle's. I thought so. My cousin once had boots just like them. Wore them to pieces. There's a pause. The kind where you're not sure if it's your turn to speak or if silence is safer. You choose silence. He clears his throat. Well, it's good that you came. To the market, I mean. You nod again. Then mercifully, he walks away. You can still hear your own heartbeat. Later, as you help your mother barter for oats, you feel the gaze of other women. Measuring, noting, whispering. You are part of something older than you can grasp. A system of approval judgment alliance, all spoken through fabric posture and quiet nods. Your mother hands over the eggs. The merchant weighs them without comment, but his wife glances your way and says, "A fine girl, this one. Useful." Your mother smiles. It is the largest smile you've seen on her face all week. You wonder if being useful is enough to be chosen, or if it is all that's ever required. As the sun dips low, casting long shadows across the green, you head home with your basket of oats. The hem of your dress is still clean, your sleeves still laced, and your heart still uncertain. But for today, you wore what was expected. You said little, you were seen. And in this village, that might be everything. The churchyard is quiet now, and the yew trees stretch their crooked arms toward the slate-colored sky. You're standing just outside the chapel wall. Boots damp from the dew-soaked grass hands nervously folded in front of you. It's courtship season, and here, oddly enough, that means loitering near gravestones, not out of disrespect. In fact, quite the opposite. This patch of land nestled between God's house and the winding road is a kind of sacred meeting ground. When the mass ends and the banns are read, the boys linger just long enough. And the girls, well, we linger too. You wait near the low wall, pretending to inspect a carving of St. Peter, worn nearly smooth by wind and rain. But you're watching, and waiting, and hoping you don't look like you're doing either. Courtship, in this century, is a study in stillness. You don't run into someone's arms. You don't confess feelings aloud. Instead, you hover. You look down, then up, then away again. If he lingers, that's something. If he speaks, that's a thunderclap. Giles's boy approaches. His name is Simon. You've learned, though, no one's called him that in your presence. He shifts from one foot to the other, like the earth's made of thistles. Your father's field looks ready, he says, nodding toward nothing in particular. You blink. It rained just enough, I think. Not too much, he asks, concerned. Not yet. There's a pause. Then he clears his throat, mutters something about pigs, and walks off with his head down. You stare at the spot where he stood, unsure whether to feel charmed or insulted. But that's how it goes. This is the dance. One that plays out week after week, always in the same places, outside the church, near the well, at the edge of the woods, when you're gathering firewood. He'll show up again, or he won't. Historians still argue whether these fleeting interactions meant real choice for young women. Some say yes, moments like these allowed for consent, subtle and quiet. Others argue the system merely mimicked freedom, offering the illusion of choice within strict boundaries. But as you brush dew from your sleeve, you realize this every word spoken outside the church carries more weight than a dozen inside it. The courtship ritual is watched closely by your parents, the priest, the neighbors, who pretend they're too busy to notice. You're never really alone. Even now, as you sit on the old stone bench under the linden tree, you hear two older women whispering behind the herb garden wall. She was talking to Simon again. Well, better him than that Miller boy. His teeth look like broken fence posts. You smile, just a little. Courtship is also a trial of endurance. You must speak the right words at the right time to the right person, with the right number of witnesses or none at all. A misplaced laugh can doom a match. A wrong glance can spark gossip that travels faster than any wind. Once a girl in the next village was seen holding hands with a shepherd's son. She ended up married to a baker's apprentice 2 towns over before summer's end. No one ever explained why. She just disappeared from her old life, and that was that. Still within the rules, some find ways to bend. You once saw Marga sneak a bit of lavender into her ribbon, knowing full well it meant devotion to anyone who understood flower codes. The boy she liked never noticed, of course, but it was an act of rebellion, quiet and lovely. You admire that. You, on the other hand, sit under the tree and pick at the bark, hoping the next interaction feels less like interrogation and more like a shared secret. A moment later, a voice startles you. Do you ever think about running off? It's not Simon. It's Elric the miller's youngest. He sits beside you, uninvited, but not unwelcome. You blink at him. Where would I go? I don't know. He shrugs. The coast, maybe. Or London. You shake your head. I've never been past the woods. He leans back against the tree. Seems like it'd be good to go somewhere you're not a daughter or a wife, just yourself. You say nothing, but his words settle in your mind like rain in dry earth. Imagine for a moment you in a different place, not watched, not judged, just free. But you remember the stories. Girls who ran off and ended up scrubbing in floors for bread crusts, or worse. A girl without a family or a name is easy to lose, so you nod politely, stand, and brush your skirt. I should help with supper, you say. Elric doesn't follow. Later that evening, as you peel turnips beside your mother, she hums an old tune, one about a maid who married a knight and lived in a tower. You've heard it 100 times. You'll hear it 100 more, but this time it makes you feel tired. Not the sleep kind. The kind that settles deep in your chest, like knowing a story's ending before it begins. After supper, you slip outside. The stars are sharp, cold pricks in a sky that feels far too large. You walk slowly toward the churchyard again, not for courtship this time, but for quiet. There, under the linden tree, you trace the names carved on the oldest stones. So many women, buried with just their husband's surname. No maiden names, no stories. You wonder who they really were, what they wanted, whether they stood where you're standing now hoping someone would see them, not as property, not as promise, just as a person. A breeze rustles the grass. You close your eyes and imagine the future, not yours, but some girl's, long after you're gone. Maybe she'll choose. Maybe she'll speak loud. Maybe the churchyard will be just a place for rest, not deals. You smile. Then you open your eyes, smooth your skirts, and walk back toward home. Because this story isn't about dreams. It's about what happens while you're waiting, and tomorrow he'll likely speak again. There's an old saying whispered among women in your village. A wedding needs three things: a priest, a promise, and a witness who never minds their own business. Today, you begin to understand exactly what that means, because while courtship is subtle, marriage in 14th century England is anything but quiet. It's a public, layered, and sometimes embarrassingly intimate ordeal. One that involves parchment proclamations, and yes, a bed tester. The morning air carries a hush. There's talk that the tanner's eldest daughter is to be wed before the next full moon. You walk past her house, see women gathered by the door, hear the clatter of pots, and catch the smell of honey cakes baking. The celebration is already being prepared. But before that day arrives, several steps must be followed, each one sanctioned by the church and scrutinized by every neighbor with eyes. First, the banns. You know this part. For 3 consecutive Sundays, the priest must announce the upcoming union aloud during Mass, giving anyone with an objection the chance to speak. It's meant to prevent bigamy force and secret matches, but it also gives the village time to form opinions, share gossip, and make predictions. Some treat the reading of the banns like a kind of sport. Do you think she's with child, someone always asks. You've learned not to flinch. The church says a verbal vow is enough to constitute a marriage provided both parties agree freely and a witness is present. But most people opt for the full ritual, a formal betrothal, a signed marriage contract, and eventually a public wedding mass. And that contract, it isn't romantic. You've seen one once. The Reeves' son married a girl from 3 villages over, and your father showed you the parchment with its careful Latin inkwork. It listed what her family gave 1 cow, a bolt of green wool, half a silver spoon, and a lidded cooking pot. In return, she would receive food protection and a place at her husband's hearth. The promise of children was assumed. Imagine your life reduced to bullet points and valuations sealed with a wax stamp. And yet, even in this, there's comfort. It's structure, stability, proof that you're wanted, or at least needed. Once the banns are read and the contract signed, the real spectacle begins. The wedding procession, planned by families but carried by the whole village, is both feast and ritual. You've only attended a few, but you remember them vividly. The bells ring, girls scatter flowers, boys carve crude flutes from reeds. The couple walks together to the church, sometimes hand in hand, sometimes stiff as cold loaves. Inside, the priest chants his Latin. He asks if they consent, and both nod or murmur, "I will." There's a blessing, a binding, a kiss if they're bold. But the part no one talks about openly, though everyone prepares for it, is the bedding ceremony. Yes, it's exactly what it sounds like. After the feast, when songs are sung and bellies full, the newlyweds are led to a bed, sometimes in the home, sometimes in a public hall. Their shoes are removed, their hands are blessed, and then a few brave souls might stay behind, not to watch everything, but to verify that the couple truly completes the marriage. You heard once of a match annulled because there were doubts, because someone claimed the couple never shared a bed, or couldn't, or didn't try. And so in some cases, a witness, usually a trusted elder or two, stays nearby, perhaps behind a curtain, or with ears pressed to the door, just to be certain. They wait for laughter, or rustling, or silence. Then they nod satisfied. Historians still argue whether such bed tests were common practice across all social classes, or only among the wealthy or noble. But in your village, the fear of being undone, of having a match reversed, runs deep enough to make the ritual persist, whether real or imagined. Today, as you walk past the tanner's house, a woman calls out, asking if you'll help sew ribbons for the bride's veil. You nod, and before you know it, you're sitting on a low stool, beside other girls threading green silk through coarse linen. "Do you think she loves him?" one asks. "I think she hopes to," another replies. You don't speak, but you wonder, will you be asked to thread your own veil one day? Will you know the name of the man before it's laid across your brow? Later that evening, your mother shows you the marriage chest in the corner of her room. It smells of cloves and cedar. She opens it and lifts a folded cloth. "This was my mother's," she says. "She was married wearing this. I was too." You trace the stitching with your finger. The fabric is worn thin in places, but the pattern, tiny red vines climbing up the edge, still holds. "There'll be a time for you soon," she says without looking at you. You nod even though your stomach is tight. You think of the girl who'll soon be led to her wedding bed. You wonder if she's afraid, or excited, or simply resigned. You wonder if she's already practiced being still, being agreeable, being quiet. That night, as you lie on your straw mattress, the wind moans softly through the cracks in the shutters. You imagine your own bedding ceremony, the faces that would watch, the whispers, the pressure, and you wonder what would happen if you refused, if you stood in front of the priest and said no. Not him, not this, not yet. Would the world end? Would your parents weep? Would the church scorn you? Or would it all go on as before, only without you in the proper place? But you know the answer. It's not just about saying yes. It's about being expected to. And soon, very soon, your name will be spoken from the pulpit. The banns will be read, the parchment written, and your bed will be prepared. The wind carries the scent of roast lamb and wood smoke as you step off the cart into the sprawling chaos of Stourbridge Fair. For a moment, the world feels too big, too loud, too bright. Traders shout over one another in accents you've never heard. There's music, barking dogs, giggling children. A juggler tosses knives near a pile of cabbages. Somewhere a goose escapes with its wings flapping wild. You're not here for fun. You're here to be seen. It's marriage season. And for families with a daughter to offer, the fair is more than trade. It's a market of matches. You're not the only girl sent here with washed hair and a scoured apron. You can spot others in the crowd, young women standing just so, flanked by their mothers with carefully packed bundles nearby. Their eyes shift between hopeful and bored. Some hold ribboned dowry chests in their arms. One wears a wreath of fresh lavender, signaling her family is ready to talk. Your own bundle feels heavier than it should, though it holds only one embroidered cloth, a dried apple, and a letter of introduction written by your father's friend, the parish clerk. You haven't spoken much since the cart left the village. Your mother sits beside you, tight-lipped and composed. Her silence says everything. This is not a fair for you. This is a fair for your value. Stourbridge isn't just another market. It's the biggest in the realm. Here, merchants from London, Norwich, even distant York gather to barter goods, but also marriages. Families from dozens of villages converge, and with them come opportunities to forge connections, settle debts, expand land, or simply offload a daughter before the next harvest. Historians still argue whether such fairs genuinely functioned as marriage markets or if that's romantic hindsight. Some records describe detailed negotiations. Others suggest it was more informal suitors observing, assessing, then returning later to make inquiries. But here, on the muddy lanes between the cheese stall and the silversmith, it feels very real. You and your mother are directed to a small wooden booth marked with a red cloth. It belongs to a matchbroker, an old woman with no teeth and too much perfume. She squints at you, then waves you forward. "What's she got?" the woman asks your mother. Your mother lists it plainly. 1 chest, 3 hens to offer, linen from her grandmother, skilled with wool. The woman leans forward and sniffs. And she's steady, not sickly, pious, quiet. You feel like a loaf of bread being presented at a stall, prodded, judged, and returned to the shelf. The broker nods, then scans a small ledger. There's a farmer's son from Ely, 30 acres and a widowed mother. Needs a girl with a good back and clean habits. I'll mention your name. Thank you, your mother says curtly. You are not consulted. Afterward, you're allowed to walk the fair for an hour. Always in sight, never alone. You pass cloth merchants with bolts of silk you'll never touch. A man roasts almonds in honey and sells them in paper cones. Nearby, a tooth drawer demonstrates his craft on a terrified man with a rope in his mouth. You stop at the edge of the livestock pens. A group of men are inspecting sheep, lifting their tails, tapping their flanks, checking teeth. And beside them, a group of young women, not being touched, of course, but the gaze is the same. Calculating, comparing. One man comments on a girl's strong arms. Another murmurs about hips fit for sons. You step back. Imagine standing there, hands folded, while someone assesses you like a harvest tool. As if your worth lies in childbearing and compliance. Not thought, not feeling, just utility. A girl near you meets your eye and offers a tired smile. You return it. Later at a food stall, you hear a snippet of conversation. She's sweet but too small. I'd wager she'll break before the second child. Then don't wager. Find another. It takes effort not to leave your bread uneaten. You and your mother return to the broker's tent before sunset. She reports 2 names, both men looking for wives before winter. One is older but steady. The other has a mole on his face the size of a plum, but no one's perfect. You're told to be available by the roast goose stand the next morning, just in case they want to have a look. That night, you sleep on a straw mattress in a noisy tent surrounded by other families doing the same thing. Somewhere nearby, someone sings a lullaby to a crying child. Someone else curses a bad deal. You stare at the canvas roof above you and think of your own village, your linden tree, the way Giles's boy Simon couldn't finish a sentence without kicking a stone. You miss him. But you're not allowed to say that. In this world, matches are made through strategy, not affection. The man who sees your soul may not have pigs or roof tiles. The man with pigs might not see you at all. In the morning, as the geese hiss and hiss behind their pen, you stand in your best dress and try not to squirm. A man in a wide-brimmed hat approaches. He nods to your mother. Then he looks you up and down, not cruelly, but without warmth. He asks your age. Your mother answers. He asks if you can keep house. Your mother answers. He asks if your hips have found shape yet. Your mother does not answer. He leaves. The broker shrugs. Might come back, might not. You look at your mother, who says only we wait. And so you do. You wait with your ribbon tucked behind your ear and your hands neatly folded. You wait while pigs squeal and hucksters shout and strangers walk by without seeing you at all. You wait because in this century, girls are displayed before they are chosen. And your choice, well, that's still a story in someone else's mouth. The fair is behind you now. The dust has settled in your boots and the sound of bartering echoes only in memory. You ride home in silence. Even your mother's usual hum is absent. You weren't chosen. Not this time. No one came back to the roast goose stand. No plum mold farmer. No stranger with land to offer. Just the broker folding her ledger, giving a shrug that said, "Another girl, another day." The cart jostles over a rut in the road. Your bundle lies untouched in your lap. Back in the village, life resumes as if nothing has changed. But inside you, something has. You felt the chill of being priced and passed over. And somehow, that hurts more than being claimed. The neighbors are curious. How was the fair, they ask, with 2 wide smiles. You offer neutral answers. crowded, long, tiring. You leave out the part where a man looked at you like a mule with a limp, but not everyone comes home from the fair. 2 days after your return, you learn that Emmeline, the carpenter's daughter, ran off. She didn't return on the cart, didn't say goodbye. She left with a boy, a dyer's apprentice from a village near the river. They were seen walking east at dawn, toward the city, toward freedom. Or ruin. Your mother says it was foolish. She's doomed herself, she mutters. No dowry, no priest, no banns, no protection. But in her eyes, for a flicker of a moment, you think you see envy. You hear whispers around the village. Some say Emmeline is clever. Others call her wicked. She'll come back with rags and bruises, says the miller's wife, or she won't come back at all. A week later, a priest from the next parish arrives with news. Emmeline and the boy exchanged clandestine vows before a witness and vanished into a merchant town. She claimed him as her husband under God's eyes, even without banns or permission. And now, she is married. Maybe. Historians still argue whether such elopements were legally binding. Some say a spoken vow before a witness was enough, even if the church disapproved. Others insist those marriages were vulnerable, subject to annulment scandal or worse. But the truth on the ground is this: if no one chases you, you are married. If someone does, you might be dragged back, shamed, punished, and told to start over. And Emmeline, no one has seen her since. You walk through the village and hear the shift in tone when her name comes up. Such a waste, they say, or her poor parents. Or sometimes quietly and only among younger girls lucky. A few nights later, you find yourself sitting by the stream. It's where you and your sister used to float leaves like boats. Now you trace circles in the mud and think about what it means to choose. You're not bold like Emmeline. You wouldn't run. But a small part of you wonders what it would be like to be chosen by someone who sees you not your dowry. To feel a hand take yours in the dark, not because of a contract, but because of connection. A twig snaps behind you. You startle, but it's only Simon. He stands awkwardly, as always, one hand scratching the back of his neck. I heard the fair didn't work out? You nod. I'm not much for fairs, he adds. Too loud. Too many goats. You let out a short laugh. It surprises you both. I mean, he trails off. If you still haven't found someone. He can't say it, but you understand. And so you say no one's asked. He looks relieved, then nervous again, then relieved once more. Right. Well, I mean, if you'd like, I could ask. You don't answer right away. You remember the woman who said girls are bartered like pigs? Only pigs squeal louder. You remember the man at the fair inspecting a girl's posture like she was a plow. You remember Emmeline vanishing into mist and rumor. But you also remember Simon's silence, the way he tries to speak without saying the wrong thing. You remember his terrible attempt at turnip compliments, and how he's never once asked your price, only your name. You nod, just once. Then I'll talk to my father, he says, straightening. Talk to the priest. First you reply. That's how it works. His ears turn red. Right, of course. Yes. He walks away with the stiff posture of someone pretending to be a man while still very much a boy. You stay a moment longer, letting the breeze cool your face. The next day, the whispers begin. Did you hear Simon's asking? A quiet match, but a good one. Better than going to the fair again, I suppose. And then 2 days later, you see her, Emmeline, back in the village. She walks like a different person. Head high, hair loose. She wears no veil, no ring, but there's something solid in her gaze. People stare, some sneer, others whisper, but she ignores them. She sees you, stops, nods. You nod back. That night, you ask your mother if a girl who ran off can ever come home. She replies without looking up from her mending, but she won't be the same girl she was. Neither will you. A sharp wind cuts across the field as you walk the dirt path toward the convent. You've never been this way before, not because it's forbidden, but because it feels like a place apart, like walking through a door into someone else's life. Today, your mother has asked you to bring herbs, lavender, pennyroyal, and wormwood to the sisters of St. Winifred's, who grow remedies and spin linen for the nearby villages. But what she hasn't said aloud, and what you suspect, is that this journey isn't just about herbs. It's about options. Because in this world of matches and markets, where marriage feels like fate wrapped in wool, some girls find another path. As the convent stone wall appears in the mist, you feel the stillness wrap around you. Birds call, but nothing human stirs. You reach the gate, knock once, and wait. A small wooden panel opens. Then a young woman, with a veil drawn tight across her hair, peers out and nods. She lets you in. Inside the walls, the world is different, quieter, slower. You're led through a garden where elderflowers bloom in orderly rows and bees hum like monks at prayer. There's a chapel, of course, but also a classroom, a scriptorium, and even a little tower where pigeons coo from the rafters. You meet Sister Avis, who takes your basket and smiles gently. She's older than you, maybe 19, but her hands are steady and her eyes are calm in a way that startles you. "Are you here to join us?" she asks. You blink. "No, just delivering herbs." She nods. That's how it starts for some. Later, as you sip broth in the convent's tiny kitchen, she explains how not all girls become brides. Some become brides of Christ. Here, among the veils and wax tablets, are girls who refused matches, or whose dowries were too small, or who chose silence over the noise of marriage beds. They rise early, sleep simply, and speak little, but they are fed, respected, protected, and sometimes, surprisingly, they act as matchmakers themselves, because while the convent offers sanctuary, it's also a kind of social hub. Rich patrons write to the abbess, asking for help arranging matches for their sons or daughters. The sisters send word to villages, coordinate introductions, even evaluate potential wives based on skill, temperament, and spiritual devotion. "They know us better than we do," one villager once said. Sister Avis can read a girl's future like a ledger. Historians still argue how much authority these nuns truly had in marriage negotiations. Some see them as passive advisors. Others point to letters and records showing abbesses brokering matches with precision and care, especially among minor gentry and landowning peasants. You see it firsthand. As you help fold linen, Sister Avis gestures toward a parchment on the table. "This girl," she says, tapping the page, "lost her mother last year. Her father's asking for a match before winter. I've written the reeve in Withersfield. His son needs a steady wife. If they agree, we'll send word for the banns." "Does the girl know you ask?" She will Avis replies. "But not until we're sure the offer is kind." That stays with you, an offer that is kind. How rare that word feels in these matters. You imagine a world where every marriage begins with kindness, not calculation. Where being seen is not a transaction, but an act of care. But even in this quiet place, rules remain. One girl, Sister Maud, tells you in a whisper that she came here to escape a cruel betrothal. Her uncle had offered her to a butcher twice her age in exchange for pork for the winter. She refused, ran here with a torn dress and blood on her knuckles. The abbess took her in, but now she may never leave. "There's safety," Maud says, "but it comes with walls." That evening, as you prepare to leave, Sister Avis places a dried sprig of lavender in your hand. "You don't need to marry a stranger," she says quietly, "nor a friend if it does not feel right. There are ways to wait, even here." You thank her, and for the first time in weeks, your chest feels just a little lighter. As you walk back down the path toward the village, the sky darkens. The cold settles in your sleeves, but your mind is still at the convent, among the herbs, the prayer, and the quiet plotting of futures unknown. And you wonder, what if a girl doesn't want to marry at all? Will the world make room for her? Will she be forgotten? Or will she carve out a life with different tools? Ink thread and time. You reach your home and find your mother by the fire. She asks how the sisters were. You say kind. That's all. She nods. And though she doesn't ask what else you saw, she holds your gaze a little longer than usual, as if to say, I remember when I dreamed too. That night, as you lie in bed, you press the lavender sprig to your nose. It smells like possibility, like stubborn hope. And as the wind howls softly through the shutter slats, you think not every match is made. Some are left unlit, unwound, or stored away for another time. And maybe that's not failure. Maybe that's freedom. The sky is a heavy slate as you make your way to the village square where the widows gather. Their voices are low but steady, like the river's murmur in winter. You're young, and they are older, scarred by loss, hardened by time, yet softened by memory. Among them is Martha, dressed in black from head to toe, her hands knotted like old tree roots. She's lived through more winters than you can count, and once she was a girl like you, fresh-faced, hopeful, and full of secrets. You sit beside her on a worn wooden bench, watching the children play. She doesn't speak at first. Then, with a sigh that seems to carry the weight of years, she begins. I was once part of the market too, she says, back when the wool was fresh and the fields green. My father brought me to the fair. My dowry was a few hens and a chest of cloth. She pauses, her eyes distant. I married a man I barely knew. His name was Thomas. He was kind enough, but cold as the north wind. We had children, 3 boys, 2 girls. I spent years weaving their futures from hope and grit. You listen spellbound. And then Martha says softly, he died. Her voice cracks, but her gaze stays steady. Suddenly I was free. Freedom is a strange thing to hear from a widow. You imagined loss would mean loneliness, not liberation. She continues, widows live differently. We choose who stays near. We barter with words, not goods. We carry memories like shields. You ask her if she ever regrets the life she had, the girl. She was the wife she became. Martha smiles, though there's no laughter in it. Regret is a luxury for those with time. I have stories, and sometimes that's enough. Historians still argue how much power widows held in medieval England. Some say they were pawns shuffled between families. Others point to records showing widows controlling property, remarrying by choice, and shaping village life. You wonder if Martha ever thought of herself as a rebel. After the children leave for the fields, she pulls out a small worn book. It's filled with prayers, but also notes in the margins, poems she scribbled when no one was watching. Write your story, she tells you, even if it's just for yourself. You think about your own story. The weddings you'll attend, the matches you'll witness, the nights spent wondering if love is more than a market price. Martha's words settle like seeds. Later, you walk home beneath a sky lit by stars, your mind full of possibilities. Maybe being a widow isn't the end of a tale. Maybe it's the beginning of a different chapter. You touch the small charm your mother gave you, a carved wooden bird. It's a token from Martha, a symbol of flight and freedom. You close your eyes and imagine soaring beyond the village walls, beyond the marriage markets and contracts. Imagining a life chosen, not assigned, a life you will write yourself. The dawn is pale, and the world feels fragile, like a delicate glass, just waiting to be shattered. You are only 10 years old, but already whispers flutter around you like restless birds. They speak of child brides and wedding vows recited by lips too young to understand. Today, you will witness such a moment. You are at the edge of the village, near the old stone bridge, where the smith's apprentice waits. He is nearly twice your age, broad-shouldered and quiet. His eyes hold the weight of many years. You wonder how it feels to carry such burdens before the sun fully rises. The village gathers in hushed anticipation. Mothers clutch children close. Fathers nod grimly. The priest in his cassock stands ready to pronounce vows. The bride you, or someone like you have heard of girls married before their 12th birthday, often for alliances or debts. They exchange promises, sealed with trembling voices and trembling hands. It's a strange ceremony. A girl so young, her fingers are still too small to lace the ribbons in her hair properly. Her voice, when she repeats the words, is barely above a whisper. "You take me, to have and to hold," she says. But does she know what she is saying? Does she understand what lies beyond the altar? Historians still argue about how fully these children comprehended their vows. Some claim the ceremonies were more about family alliances and property than personal consent. Others suggest that even then there were rituals and teachings meant to prepare girls for marriage as best as possible. You watch the girl's eyes wide and innocent. She looks to her mother for reassurance, and her mother smiles, but it's a smile that does not reach her eyes. You wonder what dreams flicker behind those young eyes. Do they imagine running through fields? Or do they see the shadow of a future waiting just beyond their reach? After the ceremony, you follow the procession quietly. The bride walks stiffly, supported by women with gentle hands. There are no songs today, only soft murmurs and the occasional sniffle. At the home, the girl sits on a wooden stool, her new husband standing nearby. The room smells of smoke and damp stone. Later, you overhear the whispers. "She'll grow into it. The marriage will be good for the village. It's for the best." You want to believe it. But as you lie awake that night, listening to the wind whistle through the cracks, you wonder what it truly means to be wed before knowing your own heart. You clutch your blanket tighter and imagine the future uncertain, vast and full of questions. For a moment, you feel a quiet rage. Not loud or wild, but steady and deep. Because no one should say "I do" before they even know what I means. You drift to sleep with that thought lingering like a secret waiting to be told. A cool breeze carries the scent of wildflowers as you slip a folded letter into the folds of your skirt. The paper is rough, the ink smudged in places. It's a secret wrapped in hope and fear. You've never written to Simon, not until now. Not since the fair, not since the whispers, not since the matches and the markets. But tonight, under a sky thick with stars, you decide to send a message to the boy who isn't quite your suitor, who isn't quite your friend. The letter reads simple words carefully chosen, but trembling with meaning. Words about the river, the spring rains, and the way the church bells sound at dawn. Words about waiting, about dreams, about maybe. You hand it to the baker's son, who promised to deliver it discreetly. Your heart pounds with a mix of dread and hope. Days pass. You don't know if Simon reads the letter, or if he laughs, or if he crumples it in his fist. Historians still argue whether secret letters and covert exchanges between young people in medieval villages had any real chance of influencing matches. Some believe they were common small rebellions against rigid structures. Others say they were rare, risky, and often intercepted. But you don't care about debates tonight. You care about the feeling, the spark of connection that crosses fields and time. One afternoon, as you gather water from the well, a folded note is pressed into your hand. Simon's handwriting. Awkward, like his words. He writes that he wishes he could speak face to face, that he's nervous, that maybe they will find a way beyond the market. You tuck the note close, feeling warmth bloom in your chest. Secret letters become your solace. They are moments stolen from the weight of dowries and contracts. Moments where your voice matters. But even as you cherish these notes, you know the world watches. Your parents, the priest, the neighbors, they listen for rumors. They judge every glance, every whisper. You understand the risk. But you also understand something new. Not all rebels are remembered. Some are only known in the silence between words. You fold another letter as the sun dips low. You imagine Simon reading it by firelight, fingers tracing your words. You imagine a future written not in contracts, but in ink and hope, and you smile. The village has changed. The blacksmith's forge is quieter. The cobbler's shop shuttered on certain days, and the baker no longer smiles as he once did. The plague has passed through like a cruel storm, taking neighbors, friends, and strangers in equal measure. You feel the weight of it in every corner, the empty hearths, the hastily filled graves, the whispered prayers for those who never returned. But even as illness sweeps the land, life continues. The marriage market shifts too warped by grief and scarcity. You notice the change when Giles's son no longer visits the well, when mothers clench their children tighter, and husbands speak in hushed tones about price. Because now, your worth is measured not only by dowry, but by survival. Food is scarce. Grain is expensive. Families once rich in cattle now count coins like prayers. The broker at the fair charges more for a simple match. The fair itself is smaller, filled with wary eyes and less laughter. Your mother speaks less of offers, more of needing to keep the household whole. She stitches by candlelight, her hands trembling slightly. You help where you can, mending clothes, gathering firewood, comforting younger siblings, and you watch. The price of girls in marriage rises, but the offers fall. Men who once sought a bride for alliance now look for one who can simply keep house and bear children in uncertain times. You think of Emmeline, who ran away before the plague came. You wonder where she is, if she's safe, if she remembers. Historians still argue about how deeply the Black Death changed marriage customs in England. Some claim it loosened old rules, giving peasants more freedom to choose. Others say it tightened control, making families cling harder to alliances and property. You feel the tension in your bones. One evening, Simon comes to your door, breathless from running. "The plague took my father," he says, voice thick. "I need to marry soon, to have someone by my side." Your heart aches. The man who once stumbled over turnip compliments is now steady serious. He asks if you would marry him. You don't answer immediately. Instead, you look at the empty fields beyond your village, at the stars, scattered above like scattered hope. You nod. In this changed world, love is quiet, not loud or reckless. It is a choice made under the weight of loss and survival. That night, you lie awake holding Simon's hand, feeling the fragile promise between you. And you think perhaps, in times of plague, the market is not just about price, but about hearts hidden fragile and quietly brave. The day of the wedding arrives with a sky painted soft gray, promising rain or shine, but no one minds. The village is alive with a nervous energy, the kind that drifts between joy and solemn duty. You stand by the edge of the crowd, your breath visible in the cool air, watching as the preparations unfold. The village men set long tables beneath a canopy of woven branches. Children scatter wildflowers across the path leading to the church. The scent of roasting lamb and fresh bread floats on the breeze. But inside you, a strange mix of feelings churns: duty, anticipation, fear, and a faint glimmer of hope. The wedding is not a private moment. It's a public ritual, a binding contract before God and community. Everyone has a role, from the reeve to the youngest child. The priest arrives in his robes, his voice strong as he begins the ceremony. His words echo through the stone nave as the couple stands before the altar, hands joined, eyes wide with the weight of the moment. You recall Lonnie's steady hand from the storm, how she kept the sail firm when the waves threatened to swallow the canoe whole. Today, you strive for her calm in your own chest. The banns have been read, the contract signed, the village watches. The vows are spoken not in whispers, but in a voice meant to be heard. I take thee to my wedded wife, and I take thee to my wedded husband. A hush falls. The kiss is brief, but significant, a seal upon the promise. Afterward, the couple is led outside where the feast begins. Music swells, laughter rings, and for a moment, the weight of the market lifts. You watch the bride. She smiles a true smile, perhaps for the first time. You wonder if this is what love looks like, quiet, steady, shared. As the sun sets, the guests move to the chamber prepared for the couple. The final act of the marriage ritual is near the bed. You remember the whispers, the fear, the watchful eyes of the witnesses who ensure the union is complete. But tonight, there is also respect. A community's blessing, a family's hope. You step back into the cool night air, the stars blinking softly overhead, and you think maybe marriage is more than market or contract. Maybe it's also a promise made in the open, witnessed and honored. The village quiets as the last song fades. The bride and groom begin their new life together, unknown, unwritten, but theirs. You walk home slowly, the cool air brushing your cheeks, and feel the stirring of something new. Hope. Years have passed, and the village has changed again, slowly, quietly, like the turning of seasons. You have grown older, your hands stronger, your heart fuller. The markets remain, the fair still bustle, and the church bells still ring. But the story you carry within you feels different now. You wonder, was the market ever truly gone? Or has it just been renamed, reshaped, whispered into new forms? Historians still argue about how much the medieval marriage market truly controlled the lives of girls and women. Some say it was a rigid system of property and power, locking daughters into futures they did not choose. Others see pockets of resistance, moments of love, and subtle rebellions beneath the surface. You recall the stars Koa learned to read during those long nights of watching the sky, the steady hands of Lonnie guiding the canoe through storms, the carved staff of Tua telling tales of resilience and hope. Their stories, like yours, are woven into the fabric of time. You remember the market stalls where your worth was weighed alongside hens and linens, the quiet moments beneath the yew trees, the letters slipped in secret, the whispered prayers to saints you barely understood. You think of Martha, the widow, who taught you that stories can be shields, of Emmeline the runaway, who dared to choose another path, of Simon, whose clumsy words became your promise. And you think of yourself not just as a girl on the market, but as a person who dreamed, who resisted, who loved. The lessons linger. Trust in small moments, resilience through hardship, the unbreakable connection to the world around you. Now, as you close this chapter of the story, you feel the soft pull of rest. The day's weight lifts, and the night's quiet embraces you. Thank you truly for joining me through every emotion, every turn, every moment of this journey. It's been an adventure, and I'm grateful to share it with you. As we close this tale, I wish you a peaceful evening. May you have a restful night, deep sleep, and dreams filled with wonder and light. Rest well, you've earned it. And when you're ready for the next story, I'll be here waiting to journey with you again. Before you go, if you loved this tale, please leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what moved you, surprised you, or lingers with you long after the story ends. Until we meet again, good night, and see you in the next adventure.